Brett Harvey, writer, director of Weekend Retreat. Thank you very much for joining us at Glossop Cinema Club for this Q&A.
Thank you very much for having us. Thank you for screening the film.
Absolutely, really appreciate your time. Hopefully everyone's has had a fantastic time with the film. I think it's a really entertaining movie. Um, Filming took place 15 years ago in 2010.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and get you in the Wayback Machine. Do you remember how you felt on that first day of filming your first feature film?
Yeah, I do. So I was like 28 when this was shot. So I was just young enough to be stupid enough to not worry about things. So I remember on the first day being like just very, very excited. And then one of the first things we shot was Dudley walking down the corridor and saying, "Just a minute," and opening the door. I remember the first shot was like a really unexciting, quite boring, locked off, low angle shot. But I remember we shot that and me thinking, I'm making a feature film. This is so exciting. And I had to look it up this morning so I couldn't remember, but we shot Weekend Retreat in 12 days, which seems sort of inhuman to look back on now. But again, I was 28, I had the energy to do that kind of thing.
There's a micro budget as well, so it's
Something like 30 grand.
okay.
Oh yeah, it's very much in micro budget, but I actually went down budget for my second feature was called Brown Willie, and that was 12 grand.
Ah,
That was
okay.
10 days filming, so I went in the wrong direction.
So you sort of went, that was easy. I can do this faster.
I made this
Like-
much harder for myself.
So what was the first spark behind Weekend Retreat? Where did that idea come from?
This all came from two different places. I was out with my partner. I live in Cornwall, obviously, and we were walking on the coast, and it was winter, and there was like a line of second homes. And I remember thinking, I was trying to write different feature films at the time, but I couldn't ever get anything to work. And I remember looking at the second homes and thinking, God, anything could happen in one of those houses and no one would know because all the other houses are empty. And that's when I suddenly went, that's a film. That could be a film. And then the other place it came from was sort of pure desperation. I was self-employed and I had no work on, and I wanted to make a feature and I just didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to write a feature film. And I remember I had like 7 days clear where I had no work, nothing to do. So I just went, okay, well, I'm going to try and write a first draft in 7 days. So I started with a completely blank piece of paper, just the second homes idea. And 7 days later, I had something resembling a very cobbled together first draft. And it went through loads and loads of development, but I sort of hatched it in about a week. I mean, it was a mess, that first draft, and as you can imagine, it would be. But I sort of developed the kind of foundations of what became Weekend Retreat from there.
What I think is so like entertaining about the film is the structure of it in the setup. Like, was how early on was that there? Was that something you were discovering as you were writing it, or was it,
I think it was in there quite early on. So the idea was that, yeah, you saw Karen and Duncan arrive at the house first and go through their story. And then it obviously jumps back and you see how Kevin and Gary ended up at the house. But I think that happened quite early on. But weirdly, can I say this? I think I can say this in a Q&A. Years later, when I saw The Hateful Eight, I was like, no way, this is the structure of Weekend Retreat. Done better, obviously, because it's Tarantino. But I was like, no way, this is the same sort of structural idea.
are you able to check the Amazon rentals to see if Tarantino ever watched it? And, like, just like the whole.
I'm
Great.
sure it's been done many times before, but I just remember watching The Hateful Eight and going, oh, that's really interesting. It felt sort of oddly reminiscent. There was more sort of clues, I remember, in the first edits of the film. In the Karen and Duncan section in Act 1, there were more like, did you hear that noise in the basement sort of thing. There was more clues alluding to Kev and Gary already being in the house, but it didn't really work in the edit, so we ended up snipping that stuff out.
No, I love the obliviousness that's going on. That the audience is sort of aware that, especially if you've seen the poster or something, you know that there's a home invasion kind of movie
Yeah,
happening here. But I like that it's sort of flipped in that it's their home invading a burglary almost. The people who have staying in the house.
Yeah, I've never thought about it like that. Yeah, of course.
So
One of the
how,
major things that happened, because the way that we got the film funded was I got the majority of the money from an organisation called Feast in Cornwall, which was about making community art projects happen. And they didn't have a strand for film, they had a strand for theatre. So the idea was you got funding from them and made a theatre show and then rurally toured it to village halls in Cornwall. And I kind of looked at the outline of that and then went to them and went, what if I made a film and whilst I was editing it, I toured the edit of the film to village halls and took feedback from the audience, like a sort of bunch of test screenings,
yeah.
basically. And that's how we got the money, the first initial pot of money to make the film. But one of the things that came out of those test screenings was the film didn't come alive until Kev and Gary were in it. They the film it just didn't take off properly in Act One, and that's when the decision to make the flambard sequence came from. So I had the speech in the script about flambards. For those of you in Glossop who are blissfully unaware, flambards was a theme park in Cornwall. It closed last year. So there was a story. So Kev tells the story of how Gary had an accident on the Demon Drop in the film. And then throughout the test screenings, we sort of the producer, who also my brother and also plays Kev, and I kind of were like, oh, it'd be funny if there was like a home video for the opening credits of that fateful day. So you don't necessarily know it's Kevin and Gary to begin with, but it just gives you a hint that there's another story that's going to come in after Karen and Duncan. And the beauty of filming a Flambards is it hasn't changed since the 1980s.
Yeah.
So it was very easy to make it look like it was from the 80s or 90s.
So yes, I'm calling this in my head. This is the Flambards Memorial screening of the of Weekend Retreat. Not that that will mean
Absolutely.
anything to anyone in Glossop. I did about Flambards as well. I did want to ask because what's your feeling about the Demon Drop slide? Because I have never gone down it. I am afraid of it. I would shit myself if I went down it
Oh, I loved it. I loved it as a
like
kid.
Gary does. Yeah.
When we went filming for that Flambard sequence, there was a few of us on the crew went there, and we were like, everyone has to go down the Demon Drop once. That's the weekend retreat rite of passage. But the older you get, the scarier that ride gets. So the two young actors playing Kev and Gary were well up for it. Were really, really up for the Demon Drop. And then us adults were sort of on the way in going, yeah, we've all got to go down the Demon Drop. And then I can remember us all getting up to the top and being like, this felt like a better idea 10 minutes ago.
I can't. I'm amazed that that survived in Flambard. I know Flambards is close. I'm amazed the Demon Drop isn't the reason it's close. Like,
I know, it's amazing,
uh,
isn't it?
how much, as you were, so you were on this 7 day break writing the script, and you were obviously thinking, I want to make a feature, but I don't have any work, I don't have any money. Where's the funding going to come from? How much did budget come into your writing process? How much was that there?
Well, it sort of guided me quite a lot because I'd made like, I don't know, something stupid like 50 short films by that point, funded and zero budget short films. So I kind of knew what the sort of shortcuts were and how you sort of shoot stuff for a lower budget. So I was like, okay, if it's all set at one location, that reduces the budget significantly. If it's a limited number of characters and largely interiors as well, because I was like, the more you can shoot indoors, the cheaper it is because you're just at the mercy of the elements outside. A lesson I learned in spades on my second feature,
I
Brown
was
and Willie,
about
which
to
is
say,
just
yeah.
exclusively exteriors. Yeah, so that's how I started the process. Was I wrote a list of sort of narrative budget rules. So limited location, limited number of characters, interiors as opposed to exteriors. Setting it majority in daytime because night shoots are a real budget killer
Mm.
because they're much harder to schedule. So trying to limit the number of sequences set at night. Plus, I really like thrillers and horror films or that kind of thing that's set during the daytime. I always think The Shining is a good example of a sort of horror film that's majority set in the daytime. There's something creepier about it.
Were there any other cinematic touchstones that you were that you might use for people who, when you were pitching or something like that, that you would say, like,
Well, the pitch sort of turned into So I'd watched Michael Haneke's film Funny Games, and I was kind of like, what if Funny Games was remade in the style of Shaun of the Dead? Was kind of
What if it was funny?
yeah.
What if
What if it was
misleading?
actually funny? But in the same way that Shaun of the Dead is sort of a loving homage to zombie films, I was like, Weekend Retreat is kind of like a homage to that home invasion film, but kind of a slight subversion of it, make it sort of funnier. And the thing that I really keyed in on, the sort of the real kernel for the characters was the sort of simple conceit of if Karen and Duncan could just get along for 5 minutes, they could probably escape quite easily. But the fact that they can't sort their problems out is what keeps getting them into trouble, and that weirdly has become a sort of theme in because I've made 3 feature films, and that theme oddly runs throughout all 3 of them in different ways.
You, I think you also initially said you thought you would be an actor. Like, being a filmmaker was not something you planned. Is
Yeah,
that
I
true?
wanted to be an actor, so I wanted to go to drama school, and then at college, I opted to do A level drama, and that was the only A level I wanted to do. And they were like, "You have to do something else." So I was like, "Okay, well, I like watching films, so I'll do media." And then in media studies, I just started playing with cameras, and then I was helping a friend shoot a documentary about his band. And this is back in the days of shooting on VHS cameras. Um, he had the camera hired out for the weekend, and we shot his band on the Thursday night. And he was like, "We've got a camera, we should make a film." And I was like, "Yeah, let's meet up tomorrow night and make a film." That's how we wrote it. Just literally went, "We'll make a film." And we made a sort of stupid zombie film. And it was all like edited in camera as well. So you just shot in order, and nothing particularly sophisticated. Tomato ketchup for blood. And then we had a house, there was a house party at my friend Ollie's house, and we crammed like 8, and we just told everybody, "Oh, it's going to be the world premiere of a brilliant horror film." And then we crammed like 80 students into a living room, and it was just like electric because everyone was drunk. So every joke just seemed to land, and people just got it. And I remember sitting there watching it and thinking, "Oh, maybe this is what I want to do." And then I kind of segued into sort of filmmaking. But I didn't know anything about filmmaking at the point of having made that film.
So casting, I wanted to ask about casting. I specifically wanted to ask about casting the gnomes in the film. Like
Yeah,
if there was a big long process to get the right gnomes for
there
that.
wasn't a big long process to get the right gnomes. There was a big long process to get any gnomes. It was bizarre. Like I'd written in the garden gnomes, and we'd kind of worked out that that was like quite a funny thing. And then we worked with Ian and Fran, who were the production design team, and they couldn't. We just couldn't got. You'd go to garden. All of us in the crew were going to different garden centres in pre-production and going, "Nope, there's none there. There's none there." It was bizarrely quite hard to find them. Cornwall was oddly gnome free. And you know what I'm about to say, which is ever since making the film, I always see gnomes for sale in garden centres. I'm like, "Where were you?"
You have to make a sequel now just because it's easier to cast the gnomes in it.
Well, Jane Redding New, who's the lovely lady who let us use her house, has a house in Barbados. And we always joked about going, "Oh, maybe Gary and Karen end up in this house in Barbados and something happens to them." But I think that was just Esther and Dean trying to get a holiday.
Yeah, so obviously one of the main cast members is your brother, Simon.
Yeah.
What was it like directing him? Had you done that before in theatre or anything like that, or in a short?
No, I'd never really directed Sai. The story behind that is we had cast somebody else. Sai was just going to produce the film, and then the actor that we had cast, uh, he was already cast in a BBC show, and right at the last minute, that BBC show changed its schedule. So it was like 2 days before we were due to start filming. He was like, "I'm really sorry, I can't be with you until." I think we would have been like 7 days into a 12-day shoot before he could join us. And it was like, "There's no way we can make it work." And I remember talking to Cy and Denzel, the other producer, and just going, "I think it has to be Cy because he's developed the script with me and been with us every stage of the way." And Cy was quite reluctant to do it. And I was like, it's got to be you, it's got to be you. And then day one, we started film. So we filmed all the Paulie, Kev, and Gary stuff. And like an hour into the day, I was like, I'm so glad it's Si. It's perfect casting. The way him and Dean bounce off each other. And Si and I work together quite a lot. And people are always asking me what it's like to work with my brother. And the sort of boring answer is it's not like working with your brother. When we're at work together, we're actually very sort of respectful and kind to each other. It's just all the rest of the time that we're not.
As soon as someone blows the whistle, it's just like.
Yeah, at each other's throats.
How did the rest of the cast come together then? So I get stressful as the last minute dropout, or was that all relatively?
Yeah, so Duncan, Dominic Coleman, that was also a different bit of casting, and that person had to drop out due to scheduling conflicts, not with the BBC, but with somebody else. That was about 2 weeks before we were due to start filming.
Oh my
And
God.
his agent said to us, is there anybody else on our books that you like the look of? Because Cornwall's such a lovely place to film. And I saw Dominic's picture and I was like, oh, I recognise Dominic from a few things. He looks great. And then they put me in contact with Dominic and I went to visit him in London, and it turned out he'd written and produced his own low budget feature film. So he sort of knew the deal. And Dominic was a fanatical surfer. So he was basically like, if he had the day off work and the surf was good in Sennen, he'd drive from Cornwall, from London to Cornwall, go surfing and drive home again.
Wow.
So he basically went, look, if you tell me that I can go surfing each evening, I'll do anything you want. And I was like, you're in. And
Nice.
he rapped on time every single day. He was the happiest actor you've ever met because he just got to go surfing in the morning and the evening. Esther playing Karen she was a friend of a friend, and we'd sent the script out to lots and lots of actresses because I had sort of stumbled upon the secret of the industry, which is if you're an actress in your 40s, you don't get offered any interesting roles anymore. And I didn't know that when I wrote the film. So we got to see quite a few people. And I was in London doing a casting, and Esther was the last person I was seeing that day. And as she walked down the corridor towards me, I was like, oh, it's not her. She doesn't look like the character. She's really glamorous. But it was a really brilliant lesson to learn as a filmmaker because she sat down and started telling me about the character. And she'd really thought about Karen's history, the marriage, where she was coming from, where she was in her life. And I was like, oh, right, it is, you have to play the character because you know her better than I do. And I've been writing her for 5 years or whatever it was at that point. And then Dudley was just a proper sort of Hail Mary shot in the dark. We'd heard that Dudley really loved Cornwall and had strong connections here. And we sent him the script. And then his agent sent us his number and said, Dudley really wants to speak to you. So I was really nervous, phoned him up. And he answered his phone by going, who the fuck's that? Oh, sorry, Dudley, my name's Brett. You've just read my script. And he went, call me back in an hour, and hung up. And I was like, oh, well, that's that ruined. Called him back in an hour, and he was absolutely lovely. And he went, oh, I just have a nap in the afternoon. And you would woke. It was just as I was falling asleep. And he wanted to talk to me because he was like, tell me why this isn't Straw Dogs. Because he hates the film Straw Dogs because of its depiction of the Cornish. And I was like, well, I am Cornish, and to me, you've got one Cornish character that's horrible and one Cornish character in Gary that's lovely. And the outsiders, you've got one that's nice and one that's not so nice. So it's balanced. And I feel very passionately about the depiction of Cornwall on camera. And he went, great, great. Can I hit someone with my fake leg? And I went, yeah, cool. I don't know why I haven't thought of that. And he went, cool, I'm in. And then Dudley came down with all these scandalous showbiz stories. And Dudley Sutton had worked with everyone and had stories about everyone, none of which I can repeat here because they're on the record. But
And well, there's the mechanic as well.
yes, the mechanic is my other brother Dan, who did catering on the film, and we were like, oh, do you want to do the cameo as the mechanic? And he was like, yeah. And then really close to the film, he was like, do you think I should have a moustache and a mullet? Because he had a beard and quite long hair. And in my head, I was like, not really. But I found myself saying yes, yes, he definitely would. And it just so happened scheduling that we filmed his first scene right at the beginning of the shoot and his last scene right at the end. So he had a mullet and tash throughout the entire shoot. Looked absolutely ridiculous.
It was real. He
Yeah, yeah,
grew.
that's real. That's his real hair.
Wow. How did like so you the thing you did with the financing for this, touring it to different communities, how did communities react when
Those
film?
village hall audiences are slightly older than probably the target audience for the film, but they kind of loved it because it was different. And the violence, I only ever had one walkout, and I always remember it because the woman walked by me and she went, absolutely disgusting. Just as the character had been stabbed with the drill. And I almost sort of wanted to call after her and go, well, there isn't any more now. You've watched all the worst bits. But certainly in terms of the violence and the language, people really liked it. Um, yeah, those village hall screenings were amazing because we'd have a feedback sheet that people could fill out and stuff. Dawn French came to one. We've still got her feedback sheet, and her feedback sheet was amazing. She had really great ideas and sort of good points about the rhythm of it. The weirdest thing that would happen at those test screenings is you'd have like, okay, so there are two stories. One is in the scene with Karen and Gary up on the cliff, she says, up on the hill, I should say, she says, you guys are brothers. And he used to say step brothers. That was written into the script. And we'd shot the film, we'd edited the film, we were touring around village halls, and it was like our 10th screening or something where somebody came up to me afterwards and went, you know, they're half brothers, not step brothers. If they've got the same mum, they're half brothers. And I was like, how did we miss that? The hundreds of people that have worked on this film at this point. And the other one that was brilliant was two men at a test screening had a full argument about what was wrong with their car. So this one guy was like, oh, if it's their cam belt or whatever, they'd never be able to get it on the driveway. And somebody else went, it's not their cam belt, it's something. And they started having like a back and forth. I remember thinking, there's not a lot I can do with this audience feedback, but this is genius.
The ADR line. It's their cam belt.
It might be the cam belt.
What do you think has changed in the landscape of trying to make indie features from 2010, around 2010 when you started filming the Weekend Retreat, to you filming projects like 2023 was when Long Way Back came out. So you've had a long experience of.
Yeah, so we shot Long Way Back before lockdown, 2019, and then it had a very protracted post-production as a result. I think loads has changed. So when we shot Weekend Retreat, that was shot on the Canon 5D Mark II, which was kind of the first DSLR camera you could shoot film on. So put nice lenses on a camera for not much money, relatively speaking. But hardly anything had been shot on the 5D at that point. So we kind of were probably one of the first features to shoot in that way. So something that's changed is kit and technology has advanced so far. You know, you can shoot and edit a film for so little money now. It's unbelievable. But what's also changed is it's harder to get people to watch stuff, I think. You've got to put so much more time and effort into the marketing side of stuff. So in some respects it's gotten easier, and in some respects it's gotten harder. But there's a brilliant Nick Dark quote. Nick Dark's a Cornish playwright, passed away in 2007, but he's got a quote in the show of his The King of Prussia where he says, if we're all kings, none of us are kings, which I love, which I always think about camera technology, which is if we've all got access to technology, then the production value lessens in a weird sort of way because it doesn't feel as unique. So actually, something that's changed majorly is a lot more people are shooting on film again now as a result, which I think is really exciting. Yeah, it's gotten easier and it's gotten harder. Funding is much, much harder now. I think I'd struggle to raise the funding to make Weekend Retreat if I tried to make it now as opposed to in 2010. And cinemas much. So we found it with Long Way Back. We worked really hard to distribute Long Way Back to cinemas and not go to a streaming service first, because box office is really down, isn't it? And it's harder and harder for smaller films to break out in cinema. But that's what we're all doing it for, right? You're
Yeah.
making stuff to see it on the big screen and have a shared experience with an audience. But then it's also getting better because, I think more interesting films are being made on a smaller scale. So something like Bait, which was Mark's film in 2019, which he shot down here in Cornwall, really broke out because it felt very odd and unique and different, and it got people excited about stuff being made in Cornwall. And that'll happen for other areas in the UK. So I think it's gotten easier. I think it's gotten harder, which is a very unhelpful answer.
No, I think it's good. It's a roller coaster. It's a demon drop slide. It's a hornet of emotions. It's like
No one's going to understand that reference.
I have one more question about Weekend Retreat itself. This is very tangential, and this sort of came into my mind because of Long Way Back as well. Is the noise that the bank safe makes the noise from Mr. E's Beautiful Blues by the Eels? It goes do 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 do.
No, but it's coincidentally very, very similar.
Oh, okay.
I've never thought about that until you said it, but it's not on purpose. That's just a cosmic coincidence.
I didn't know if there was a hidden eels Easter egg, and I was going to go back to Brown Willie and see if there was one in there. And
No, in terms of hidden Easter eggs in my feature films, is every feature has got a reference to Sam Raimi. Very hidden reference to Sam Raimi,
okay,
who's a filmmaker I really like, but who also Evil Dead was a micro budget horror film. So I
I,
can tell you. Do you want to know what the one in Weekend Retreat is?
go on then. I'll cut it out if I want to keep it to myself.
So the name of the safe is Westlake, which is the name of Liam Neeson's character in Darkman.
Yeah.
That's as nerdy as it'll get.
So yeah, was the safe just a thing stuck on the wall?
Yeah,
Just like
there's nothing
yeah,
behind that door. It's just
yeah.
a picture frame with a safe door welded to the front of it.
But you got to name it, so you were like, ah, ha, ha, Easter egg time.
Yeah. Well, and also I find it really hard to think of names for things. It's nothing worse than naming a character or naming a safe or whatever. So I just go back to the well, which is nerdy film trivia.
Which is Sam Raimi's IMDb.
Yeah, permanently open on my desktop.
So, what's next for you as a filmmaker?
So we are 10 drafts into the next feature film, which is called Full Stops, Not Tadpoles. So I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in 2019. I was diagnosed about 6 weeks before we were due to shoot Long Way Back. So that was great timing. So I'm sort of, so I'm, what's that? So I'm sort of 6 years into my diagnosis this year. So I've written, and then I made a short film called Hand, which was all about diagnosis, which I genuinely didn't think would have any, I didn't think many people would watch, and that film has ended up having 22,000 views on YouTube. And I found out recently Parkinson's UK use it when they're training carers. They use it, they show it to them, which is, amazing. And I had so much sort of positivity coming back, and so many people going, this mirrors my journey with the disease, that I was like, okay, there's more to be done. So Full Stops Not Tadpoles is a genre bending romantic comedy about Parkinson's disease.
Amazing. And so,
We are trying and failing at the moment to get financed because nobody seems to want to make a genre bending romantic comedy about Parkinson's disease. But we will get it made. So we had a read through with some actors last week that was you remember at the beginning of this conversation we were talking about we weren't recording that bit, but we were both saying that we need a little encouragement every so often. So I find that every sort of 6 months or so I go, oh, maybe I should just give up, and then something nice will happen. The read through last week was the nice thing that happened on that project. So I heard some actors read out loud, and we had some people listening, and it got big laughs, and it seemed to work really well. Full Stops on Tadpoles is the real focus at the moment. I really want to make that film whilst my health will let me make a film, because unfortunately Parkinson's and filmmaking doesn't particularly go hand in hand. So whilst I've still got the energy and the sort of physical wherewithal to do it, I want to make that film. So that's the target. I spoke to a playwright friend of mine, and he said, what are you writing? And I said, a comedy about Parkinson's. And he went, and I went, can you write a comedy about Parkinson's? And he went, well, you can. And I went, okay, cool. That's the one benefit of being diagnosed is you can make work about it, which hopefully people will find helpful and enlightening.
Well, Hand is a incredible film, and that's one of the few things on YouTube where I recommend people read the comments as well, because I've read the comments under that film, and
Nice.
they're
Mind
amazing. Yeah, it's
I can't tell this story without crying, but I'll try. The day we released it, I'm going already. Somebody tweeted me and said, "Oh, I haven't told my family about my diagnosis yet. I'm going to use your film." And you go, "Fucking hell." That's just better than winning an Oscar, isn't it?
that's amazing.
That's as good as it gets, I think.
Brilliant. Well, yeah, thank you very much, Brett. It's been an absolute treat to talk to you about your film and career and everything. And thank you for letting us show Weekend Retreat. And
Thank you for sharing it. Thank you everyone for coming, and yeah, thank you very, very much. I feel very lucky that the film is still getting screened every so often like this. It's amazing. So thank you.
we'll see you for film number 4 very soon, hopefully.
Yeah. Might be in a few years, but yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's impressive.
I was thinking we'll get up nice and early tomorrow. I just mean spend some quality time together. That's all I want. This place is great, isn't it?
Yeah, spectacular.
I wouldn't want to be here on my own.
Oh, I don't suppose there's too much chance of a break-in.
What now? I don't know. Professionals are predictable. Shit. Amateurs are dangerous. Or maybe we're both.
They've got someone with them. What? They're torturing him with a drill. We're next for the drill. They're going to come up here. They're going to see that we've got free.
That's enough.
It'll be like Marathon Man. They'll drill our teeth, our guns. You know, is it safe? Is it safe? I don't want to be dusted in hospital.
Is that all you got, pussycat?